my God, what's the word?
Windshield wipe?
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. Today we're going to talk about all the things we've watched over this past weekend. There's lots happening. It's the second week of January now, so things are slowly picking up. So there was a couple options for us to watch. We tried to watch as much as possible. So let's get started.
So we spent, I think, the most amount of time this week or weekend watching the Dakar highlights.
Yes.
And a lot has happened throughout this whole week. A lot of changes also in the championship. And I think we'll just talk about the biggest things that happened.
Okay.
So first of all, we had, for the very first time, we had the 48-hour stage, essentially.
Yes.
So stage 6 was a part 1 and part 2. And the way it worked is essentially they had different bivouacs set up, and then the racers had time until I think 4 o'clock or 4:30.
Yes.
And then after that time, they just had to stop at the next
Checkpoint.
and that's where they camped out for the night.
Which is also wild. They didn't have like their usual setup with their team chefs and their motorhomes and stuff.
Correct.
They literally pitched tents. They slept, which was also in a way the way they were talking about it was so like communal. Like people like helped each other out, like helped putting up the tents.
Yes.
They shared like snacks or food that they brought.
Yes.
And it was really just another way of emphasizing the Dakar like sense of community,
The spirit
of Dakar. I mean, I can only imagine like obviously it's going to be freezing cold in the desert, but just sleeping under the desert sky with the stars.
There's like no light pollution, no noise pollution. It just seems very dreamy. I will also say what I wanted to point out is that during that extended, so during that 48 hours, you are not allowed to get any type of help from your team that usually is set up in the bivouacs, and no service cars or anything like that. So only participating drivers can help each other out. So if there's an issue with your bike, with your car, with your whatever, someone from the other team has to help you out. You cannot get outside help.
Yeah, so unfortunately there was a bunch of retirements this week. I also thought it was very interesting that they had to get literally lifted by helicopter.
I love the footage of the motorcycles just dangling off of the freaking helicopter and just like, I imagine the rider would still be just dangling.
They weren't.
They weren't, but I just like the idea of it.
But it was a lot of heartbreak this week. I mean, there was lots of excitement, lots of the numbers keeps changing.
Yes.
Like the lead, sometimes it's like a minute or a second. Sometimes some categories it's like hours. I mean, a lot of the trucks, there were a lot of retirements. In the quads, there's also lots of retirements. I mean, there's still a whole week to go.
Yes, and this is just week 1, right?
Yeah.
And this goes down to what we talked about last weekend, and what I talked about also in the like breakdown video is that less than 50%, I think, of people make it all the way to the end because eventually you might be running out of materials. I think there was one team who actually gave another team a spare tire because they didn't have anything. So that was really nice. And then we had, for example, which was also very heartbreaking, that American motorcycle driver who opted to actually kick off the Dakar this year.
I know, he was the one that we mentioned in the last video that he decided to start, which he partially regretted because it wasn't the smartest choice being the first one out, but it's also kind of cool to say I am the one that started the Dakar.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately he's not there anymore.
Yeah, he I guess they built the bike, but he had only one testing session, and then of course during the thousands of kilometers and miles that they're traveling, they didn't really get the chance to...
I mean, they ran into some issues that they didn't necessarily anticipate, or he also didn't know how to fix because they didn't come up in prior testing.
Well, because they only had one testing session.
Exactly.
So it ended up he is out of the Dakar now, which is really heartbreaking. But on the other hand, he's already looking forward to next year.
Yes.
So that's the one thing you also see across all of them. that they're all like, yes, it's unfortunate it's over, but this is what we're changing for next year.
Yes.
So they're all already excited for 2025 Dakar. And I think one thing or a couple things, because we're not going to be able to cover all of it because there's so much that happens obviously within a week.
But we're also going to do like a final Dakar recap video just about Dakar, because we're going to talk about some other things that we also watched this week. But I mean, so much happens in Dakar. It's nuts.
But I think the three big things we should probably bring up. So for one, the winner of last year in the trucks, Jan van Kesteren. So he's still in it, but he's now behind like over 2 hours because they were stuck in the sand with their trucks. Before I move on to the second thing, what I thought also is very interesting, because the first couple of stages of the Dakar was very rocky, right? So you had to deal with a lot of punctures. And they still deal with punctures in the soft sand, but I always thought like, okay, they're probably so happy to get out of the rocky, like areas, because I imagined that the soft sand would be easier, but it turns out the soft sand is almost worse because you might not get a puncture, but a lot of people got stuck, and a lot of people like in the classic Dakar, the trucks, and even the ones that are the lightweight vehicles get stuck. So almost about everyone gets stuck at some point.
I mean, there's no easy leg in Dakar.
Yeah, yes, but I just imagined it would be.
I mean, because it looks so pretty.
It looks very gorgeous.
Just the overhead shots, like we said last week, it's absolutely beautiful. Like we were talking about. I mean, I would love to participate. If anybody wants to sponsor us to participate in Dakar in a couple years from now, I'd totally be down. And so, okay, well, you would be if we would team up together. I would do the navigation.
Yes.
And then you would
be... I'm bad with directions in general.
I mean, just to the grocery store.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
But I think it's also because you were like, oh, we'll be in a car together. And I was like, we should not be in a car together, because you do need like a mechanic / technician kind of in your car. True. So you're not as reliable on other people. Or maybe we'll just do a crash course in how to fix everything in your car in case anything goes wrong.
That's what I'm saying, in a couple years from now, so that way we can prepare.
Yes.
But I would also, if I could choose what kind of vehicle, I would probably choose like the SSV type. I'm like, of course, the car, the ultimate, like the top tier Dakar would be cool as well, like the ones that Carlos Sainz is in and Sebastian Loeb and stuff. But I mean, I think the SSV look really cool because they're also small and compact. They seem a little bit more agile. I would choose.
I like those, but I also love the trucks, the service truck. I just love the trucks. There's also 3 people in there.
Yes.
But I just love the trucks. They just seem really cool.
They just seem so intimidating.
Yes.
Also
a little out of place in the middle of the desert, driving up and down dunes. I was like, what are you doing? You know?
Why? Yeah.
And I of course, the Dakar Future, the 1000 mission or something like that. I really like that they have you have like these hydrogen trucks and stuff like that. I think that's very interesting, and I genuinely really enjoy, even though unfortunately in the extended highlights they didn't show the classic Andy future mission as much, but I do like the classic. I like the idea of taking a car from like the 90s or whatever through the desert, but you know, those are obviously they're a much greater disadvantage. And actually the way they're structuring the champion or the standing, that is different because you have points compared to time.
Yes, that's very true. Very different.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about, number 2, is that unfortunately it seems like Nasser Al-Attiyah is out of the race for the championship itself, or winning Dakar, because they ended up getting stuck, or they had a damage, or did they get stuck, or both?
Well, they had their suspension or something broke. Like it had quite a bit of a damage, so they had to wait for like 2 hours for a service vehicle to come to
because
help
they also
them.
Start at the end, right? The trucks are at the very end.
Yeah, so it took them. They had to wait for such a long time. So
out of the main categories.
Yeah, so that way the time that they would have to make up is so much that it's very unrealistic that they would make it to the front. So
because so many people would have to also have misfortune in the next week,
and you don't wish that onto anybody.
Of course not.
So it's very very sad. I mean, there's so many people to root for, and
Yes.
so it's sad for everybody who doesn't do
Yeah,
well. 'Cause
absolutely.
I want everybody to do well.
Yeah.
But it was just because you could see like they had footage of like the broken pieces, and you can see like there's no way two guys in the car could just fix it, because they said they didn't have the parts for it, so they had to wait for the parts to be delivered to replace it, which is what took so long.
Yes, it's also very interesting because it's unfortunate that so their strategy going into the 48-hour segment or stage 6 was to like they're pressured before they'll attack, and they actually started in first place. And because the bikes take a different route this time around, they didn't have the same way, so there were no like tracks they could follow, which ended up biting them, I guess, in the butt.
Yeah.
Compared to his teammates, so the ones in the other car, Sebastian Loeb, he purposely actually missed a waypoint to get a 15-minute penalty.
Which is so interesting, that because 15 minutes is a lot.
It's a lot, and then it's very interesting that because Carlos Sainz opted to just do the stage beforehand a little bit slower, so he only lost like maybe 5 minutes, and now he is number 1 in the standings. So I don't know if he never thought about just driving slower instead of taking a full penalty, you know, because if you drive slower, you can, I guess, gauge it a little bit easier instead of getting a set 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that was his strategy. It's been working out for him because he
did make up the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was also this really cool moment where it was him and Carlos Sainz.
They were
like,
battling.
Oh, and then he eventually passed it. And I mean, when he passed him, and then he took some air, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna
he's gonna wipe out. Yeah.
But it worked out for him. So it was a big risk. 15 minutes is a lot of time, especially because they're so close up in the front. But as of right now, it seems to have worked out for him. So
yeah, because when those cars flip, we saw with Yassir, like this car was he I guess hit a bump while driving, and then it completely crushed the car. So they're out of the Dakar.
Yeah.
With them, it was also, he seems to have such a sunny disposition, but I'm very happy at least that no one got injured.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone was fine. They're just out of the race.
Yeah, it was Al Raid.
Yeah.
Also a Saudi Arabian native, and he was doing so well.
Yeah.
He was always in every interview. He was so like happy, like
just a cheery guy. He seemed to like have really.
Timo Gottschalk was the German navigator, and they did really so well. But yeah, they hit this bump. He said he didn't see it, and it flipped, and they had somebody help them to flip it back onto the wheel.
Right?
Oh, was it the local?
I think the locals, they pushed them, and then they were the ones hugging.
Maybe, I don't remember, but you could see once it was back on the 4 wheels, there was no way it could.
No way, yeah.
But that was one of the other things I do want to point out is this time on the couple legs that we watched this week, you could see locals sitting on the dunes just watching, and then also if somebody got stuck, they helped. They like,
came and shoveled with them.
or like help push or pull or whatever was needed, and it was really nice to see. I mean, I would totally go if it was here.
Yeah.
But it was just another emphasis on community and the spirit of Dakar.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know, because I know that usually the Dakar takes place for a couple of years in the same country, so it'd be interesting to see where they're going to go next. I don't know if they've already announced that. But the last thing I think we should talk about the Dakar before we move on is, I think, the big thing that just happened over the weekend while they had a rest day.
Yes.
And that is in the, I think it's the lightweight vehicles, right?
It's a Challenger T3 or T4, I think it's called.
Category, where you have last year's winner, also Eric Goscal, and his teammate plus his navigator plus the other teammate, which is his uncle. They got disqualified from the Dakar this year because they were using a carbon component for their clutch, and that goes against the FIA regulations. So I guess during the rest day, they did inspections, and they found that they were using a component or material that is not allowed. So they were completely disqualified. In the 2 articles that I found so far, one of them said that they were not actually challenging that decision, and then the other one, which seemed to make more sense to me, that they are challenging the FIA decision. But two problems with that. For one, their excuse for using that component is that they're using something that's called the free clutch. And they think they should be allowed to then use it. And FIA says, based on our regulations, it says specifically that you're not allowed to use that type of a material.
Yeah.
So we're not forbidding you using a free clutch. We're forbidding you having that type of material, which is very devastating because Eric was dominating.
I mean, he won 5 of the stages.
Yeah, 5 out of the
5 out of 6 stages, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, he's such a young kid too. Like, he's a young guy. Like, his dad is in it. He's in it. His uncle is in it. So him and his uncle are the ones that are disqualified now. And it's just, I mean, it was always so fun to see him. Also, because he had this even a more sunnier disposition.
Or equally as sunny.
Like, I mean, they're both just, like, he was just so excited to be there and excited, of course, to be winning. Like, who's not excited to be winning? But he just, like, you could tell how much he loved
what he's
driving and like participating. And even though he said like the 48 hour before the news broke, he was like, yeah, the 48 hour one was the most challenging thing he's ever done before. He went through so many emotions, he said, but he just seemed so thrilled. But that's one of the things you can say all the way around. Like, everybody that they interview, everybody is so excited to be there, to be a part of it. Yes, it's so exhausting and taxing to participate in it, but everybody's looking forward to the next day. Granted, there's still one more full week to go, and you have no idea what's going to happen.
We don't know.
So I'm excited to see what's going to come up next, but this is definitely some really devastating news.
And then the last thing I want to say about that is that, so they are apparently appealing the FIA decision, but the FIA has 30 days to reply or respond to the appeal, and by the time then it would already be over the Dakar. So at this point, it's quite devastating because they would have to get an answer before the new stage starts. And it doesn't seem like they're going to get an answer. So we're going to, keep an eye on it. And if anything else happens, we'll update you guys about that. But in general, a huge upset, I would say, this weekend. Not something I expected. When I saw the notification on my phone, I was like, oh my Lord. At first I actually was like, I should tell you right now, but I ended up telling you sooner. But yeah, what a huge upset. So
frustrating. But we'll see what's going to happen. I mean, things change daily at Dakar or racing in general. So we shall see.
We shall see.
All right, next up, we watched the Andros E Trophy.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yes, I wanted to finish with the other one. So let's get into the Andros E Trophy first. You made a video about it.
I did make a video about it, breaking down everything that you need to know about the Andros Trophy. So there's currently a YouTube channel that has uploaded the most recent race. It doesn't seem like to me that it's the official, because it's not on the Andros Trophy channel itself, but they have the full race on there, and I think we watched both races.
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's a little tricky to tell because everything is in French.
Yes.
So we were just watching it. So the entire video is like 3+ hours. We saw a bit of some qualifying, and then we saw the end of a couple of races, or we saw the races at the end, like the last hour we essentially watched fully. The races are very short.
It was 5 laps.
Yeah. So, it was very different from what I expected. I was really excited to watch it. I've never seen an ice race before. But I didn't expect it to be drifting as much.
Okay, you thought it would be like more grip?
Yeah, or I thought it would be more like rallying, like cross country, because it had this very specific circuit, and it was like drifting. There was lots of action in the first corner, and then it kind of not too much more movement happened, which I thought was interesting. I mean, it was still exciting to see them like having so much control on the ice, like.
Or on the snow.
On the snow and ice, and it's small cars, but the track is also fairly small and narrow, I felt. So it was something very new to me, but it was cool to watch. So I definitely recommend taking a peek at it. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's 2 more races in this season, and the season will actually already be over at the end of the month.
Yes.
So they just have 5 races total. But yeah, it was interesting. It was also interesting that it happened towards at night almost. It seems
Yeah,
like it was very dark.
Uh-huh.
And then and it almost seems like if you're right behind someone, you can't even see anything because of the snow that comes up.
Yeah.
So very cool though.
Also, two more things I wanted to mention about it. One, also as an audience member, I thought it was kind of wild that you get splattered in snow and ice.
Better just warm, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was crazy. So it was kind of cool. But I also saw, which I thought makes a lot of sense, of course, is that I'm sure it was both windows, but I only saw it on the driver side window, was a oh my god, what's the word?
Windshield wipe?
Was a windshield wipe. I mean, it makes a lot of sense just because. Oh man.
Okay.
It makes a lot of sense just because of all the debris that gets like blown up when they drive. But I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because also I noticed it because when the guy won, he opened the door slightly to wave out to the audience. I was like, I guess maybe the window he can't put it down or something. I'm not sure. But then that's when I saw that the window was still going.
Windshield wiper, yes.
So that was really cool to see.
Very cool. Yeah. This weekend also actually Formula 4 UAE happened, but we didn't get a chance to look into that.
No, not yet.
Which also very interesting. They actually do 3 races per weekend. And then one race is always usually about 28 minutes plus 1 lap. And then also Formula E had its very first race. Unfortunately, they hadn't uploaded the whole race yet as of recording of the video. So they only had the highlights. So we haven't actually taken a look at that.
Yeah, we didn't want to just look at the highlights and pretend like we had seen it.
Yeah.
But we do want to definitely see it. So hopefully Roku will upload the full race soon so we can watch and tell you all about it.
Yes, because all of last season's already on there available to watch for free, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean the qualifying was partially on there and the 5-minute highlight video, but it was not 5-minute highlight is not enough.
Yeah,
to like really capture
5 minutes
the whole
seems
thing.
quite short, to be
Yes.
honest. And then also the free practice is on YouTube. That's the one thing I will say about Formula E. What a pain in the ass to watch it. Like honestly, they don't make it very.
Yeah, and we don't even know yet how we can watch the next race. 'Cause
I'm hoping it will be on
online.
Roku, but it doesn't show. And I was like, why would you make it so difficult for your fans to figure out where you can watch it?
Because I really want to watch it.
I do want to watch it too, but that's the only I just wanted to voice my complaint.
All right, and then so the last thing that we watched this weekend was the second round of AMA Supercross, which happened in San Francisco.
Yes.
Which was, we watched the first race last weekend in
Very
Anaheim.
different this time.
Very different. So this time it was a mud race. It was rainy in San Francisco. I mean, it was pouring rain. They even had to cancel one of the qualifying rounds just
qualifying
because
session 2.
Yeah, because they had to redo the track. They made some changes to the track just to make it more rideable, safer, and
well, they opted also they're like, well, listen, we can do qualifying session 2 or we can try to save the track integrity and try to make the track as drivable as possible for the heats and for the races. And I thought that was the right decision.
I think so too.
Because it was very, very different. I mean, we were trying at some point to guess the racers or riders' helmet colors and bike colors because you could not tell the difference.
Not at all.
It was just all brown. But on the other hand, it was also really cool that you could also really see in a race like that, the experienced drivers were really showing their quote-unquote experience or their racecraft, right? You had Jet, who won last week the 450cc. He came in 9th or 8th or something like that.
9th, because his brother came in 10th. So good thing Hunter made it this time to the final round, and he made it to 10th. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was also experience. It was maybe also bad luck if you get into the wrong lane, if your bike gets stuck and you can't the wheels don't turn anymore because it's just completely mudded in. I mean, it was absolutely wild. Also how they had to push themselves sometimes just to make it through. If you lose a little bit of momentum, you immediately get stuck in the mud. I mean, it was just a whole completely different beast to last week. It was still such an interesting race.
It was very interesting. It almost seemed though that if you were on the 450cc, it was the better bike to be riding or racing in the mud, just because you had a little bit more power.
Yeah.
And it seemed like to me, if I remember this correctly, in 250cc, more people got stuck than in 450.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy.
And I think it was, even though I think in 250cc in the final race and in 450, even though you had the leader who had quite a gap, at no point was it sure that they were going to win.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
they had kind of found their way, but it could have at any point, they could have gotten stuck. They could have toppled over and ruined everything.
Yes.
I
mean, because so many times they lost their lane or something like that, and then the bike fell. You have to be able to lift it up and start it up again without getting stuck. I mean, really, there was leads of 7 seconds going back down to 1 second just because something happened. So it was so fascinating. Still every second, I mean, nobody was safe.
Nobody was safe.
And everybody looked like a mess afterwards with all the mud over their faces.
I will say though, first of all, in 450cc, last year's champion came in first.
Yeah, Chase Sexton won.
Chase
Congratulations
Sexton,
to him.
and then
I mean, he did a beautiful job. He led the whole race. But it was still
he had the most insane start. It seemed he had the perfect start.
It almost seemed like he knew the gate was going to come down. He pounced out of the thing. It was so cool to see. And then he was saying in the post-race interview that he thought he had seen a flinch of the gate, so he just kind of went for it, and it worked out for him. Because if it wouldn't have worked out, he would have gotten stuck, and then that would have ruined the race. Potentially the race for him. Yeah. So it worked out, but it was an insane start for him. I mean, he immediately was in the front and he was there the whole time, but I mean, nobody was safe.
Nobody was safe. Then you had Eli Tomac, who came second, and then Ken Rushkin.
Oh, the German one.
The German guy, he came third. Unfortunately, I don't really remember the 250cc. Because Shimoda did really well in his heat, but he ended up he was out because he got stuck.
I mean, you saw a bunch of bikes overheating the engine. There was lots of smoke coming out.
Or just burning the clutch.
Yeah, I mean, it was a whole different beast compared to the previous week, but it kind of lit more excitement for us.
I'm very excited to watch the next race.
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe that we'll actually see the next race in person.
Is there no one this upcoming weekend?
No, sorry. Yeah, the next one is going to be in Anaheim this upcoming weekend, but then the upcoming one is going to be in San Diego this upcoming weekend, and then the last one in California, I believe, or at the last one at the end of this month is going to be in Anaheim, which is the one we're trying to hopefully go see in person, which would be amazing.
I wanted to bring this up because I'm trying to see if I can find this. Do you remember the sitcom intro that they did? They showed this whole montage, and the music behind it. I hope I can find it. So I can show you guys this. This is it sounds like a sitcom, but then if you switch out the music. It would be much cooler, but for whatever reason, it looked and sounded like the
because they had footage of all the driver or all the riders with their names, but it was this happy-go-lucky kind of music.
This music, and it sounded like the intro of a 90s Y2K. That was really funny. But yeah, I think that is it. That's everything we've watched this weekend. In the comments down below, let us know what you've watched. Or let us know what you're excited about watching.
Yes. And
then, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like and subscribe, and we will be seeing you guys tomorrow here at the Daily Racing Show. Bye-bye.